What film or series lit your fuse and made you have to tell stories on screen?
There were two of them. Robert Townsend and Keenan Ivory Wayans were huge influences on younger me. When I saw I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, and realized the story behind it, it really changed the way I looked at filmmaking and what it meant to be a filmmaker. Just because it was comedy that I could relate to, and it was so ridiculous that it became a thing of household legend with me and all my friends. In Living Color was a sketch comedy show that I think to this day changed the entire world of television, especially for me, because I had never seen anything like that. And the level of talent on that show, as far as improv and ability, the names that came off that show, it was nothing like it on TV, and it really was a huge influence on me and how I wanted to move through the business, because everybody was so different and everybody could do everything. You know, they were just really profound talents. And Don Cheadle did a movie called Rebound, where he played Earl the Goat Manigault. And I remember one night when we first got cable, I saw it on HBO, and it was just a performance that has stuck with me my entire life. Now I might go back and watch it now and it sucks, but when I was a kid, it was really like, you know, Don Cheadle is one of those actors that I always looked up to, just simply because his ability was so simple and unforced, but yet so educated and specific to what he was trying to achieve as a character. So that was something that really influenced me as an actor and how I wanted to work.
Well, now, so you went to Juilliard, you're making your way in the business. What movie or series or performance did you watch that was so good it made you think, what am I doing here? Can I really play in a sandbox?
I'll say this. I'm the most famous actor on The Wire who's never been on The Wire. All my friends were on The Wire. I literally know everybody on that show. All of my friends got cast on that show and I never did. So watching The Wire when I was a kid, more so than any other show, I feel like The Wire had such an effect on me because I got to see my people that I knew in day-to-day life get amazing scripts, an amazing platform at the time, and do amazing work. Like it don't always line up like that. Sometimes you'll get a great script and you'll get a mediocre co-star or a mediocre director and an okay script. But that was the first show I saw where I had to run home and watch it.
That's fascinating, because a lot of people didn't catch up to that show until long after it ended.
Right. Of course,
know?
of course. And it's funny because I auditioned for the first season. Like when HBO was like, we're doing this show called The Wire, my agent was like, you have to go in and audition for the show, you know, Dave Simon, this, that, and the third. And it was just one of those shows that affected me because I literally saw and knew everybody doing the highest work of their potential.
Wow. I remember when I first met Michael B. Jordan, we're walking down the street on the Quaset when they were premiering Fruitvale Station, which really launched him and Ryan Coogler. And somebody yells out, "Hey, where's Wallace at?" And I think it kind of freaked Mike out a little bit. But it just goes to show you, man, that show, yeah, right. That show resonated. It was a great show. A lot of episodes, it didn't really feel like much happened, but it was just that through line.
Well, you had so many different, personalities. Like you look at Andre Arroyo, the work that he was doing on that show was crazy for that time. You look at Jamie Hector, the work that he was doing on that show was crazy. It was Charles Dutton did a series for HBO. It was a miniseries, like 4 episodes called The Corner. And not too many people remember it. I've never seen it again, but it was the catalyst for The Wire. When that show came on, Charles Dutton directed it, and he went to the block and just made a show on the block. And it really, I was 16, 17. But I was just petrified by what he was able to capture. So I was glad when they brought The Wire and scripted it and made it work off of that. But The Corner, it wasn't a series. It wasn't an ongoing series. It was just a 4-part miniseries. Yeah. And what Charles Dutton was able to do was so futuristic and so beautiful that they had to bring a show off the piggyback off it.
Boy, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, go back and watch The Corner and then watch The Wire. It's really interesting.
Wow. Well, now, so maybe it was something that you did where you got acclaim, or maybe it was approval from someone whose opinion really mattered to you. What first gave you the confidence that this is what you need to be doing?
When I was a kid, so I was a pretty popular kid in New Orleans, and I had my little TV show and I had my little radio show, and I was doing King Lear, William Shakespeare, and I was playing the bastard son, Edmund, and my friend Tristan was playing my brother Edgar, right? And so it comes to the point in the play where Tristan had to kill me. So Tristan takes his big bronze sword and he runs me through, and right when I'm holding the sword, and right when I'm going to the ground, about 4 girls in the audience jump up and go, "Anthony, no!" I was like, I want to be an actor. So I owe it all to Tristan Kodrescu.
You owe it all to a great death scene, huh? Now, what would you say was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome to allow you to turn these performances and projects that influenced you into your own language as a performer?
Great question. One of my favorite, and no one knows this, so I'll tell you, I studied with this amazing clown from the Big Apple Circus named Dickie Ellis. And Dickie, he was like the head clown at the Big Apple Circus. And I studied with him for like 2 years. And I really learned body control and physical speech. So it's something that really stuck with me, the idea of taking the words away, taking everything away, and all you have is you. Now, how do you communicate? And I think that what, you know, and not to get on some existential artsy shit, but I think that's what really, when I started studying it, when I started looking at the idea of, you know, the theater history, theater lit, the idea of just theater as a whole, it made me a much better actor and a much more convincing actor because I was able to convey my thoughts without having a bunch of words I needed to use.
Well, you know, you mentioned Don Cheadle before, and I'd read that you were his understudy on Top Dog, Underdog, right? And then later on, you guys were in the Marvel universe together. And so when you having that youthful memory of him and then watching him work on stage, what does that feel like? Validation, intimidation? Like what is his magic that maybe rubbed off on you a little bit?
No, it's still admiration. I've admired Don. I mean, that was my third job. And I got to watch Don Cheadle and Jeffrey Wright go at it every night on stage. And it was like a PhD class in how to capture an audience. And you know, we would sit backstage, I would talk with Don, I would watch him prepare. I would see how much work went into him being ready to go on stage every night. And I learned a great deal, even to this day, when we get on set, you know, for the Marvel stuff, or when we do something else together. He's a professional. And I think, you know, being a professional is probably 75% of the business that we're in. Because if you show up prepared and ready, when they say action, it's all systems go. So most of the work is done before you even get to work.
Yeah.
So I learned that from him, and just seeing how hard he swings. You know, it was a great experience to have early in my career.
You know, I've done interviews, for instance, with like LaMonica Garrett on 1883. And at the premiere, because he was aware of this. When they would show the credits to those old Western shows, his was one of the very first black faces you saw. And I brought that up with David Oyelowo for Bass Reeves. And he's like, so LaMonica at the premiere, his whole family, they were bawling their eyes out. And I'm a white guy. I would never even think of these things. But, I met you at one of those Avengers parties, and you had cute kids running around and all that stuff, when there's never been, Captain America played by a black actor. What does that mean to you in terms of when you look at your kids and when you look at future generations? 20 years ago, that probably wouldn't even have been in the realm of possibility. Can you kind of distill what that means to you?
It's funny you say that, because I feel like 20, 30 years ago, where was the time, it definitely would have been in the realm of possibilities. I feel like as a art form, we've taken a step back. If you look at TV in the 90s and early 2000s, think about all the black families, think about all the black faces you had on TV then, as opposed to now. Captain America as, a black man is a huge monumental step. But remember, we had Blade and we had Spawn in the 90s and early 2000s. So it's not, we're not breaking the mold here. It's just Marvel just happens to be much bigger than those movies were back then. And, for me, what makes it so important, and, my kids will never know how hard I worked to get where I am. Like, my kids will never know the amount of sacrifice that I put in to get to where I am. And that's why it's very personal for me. Even if I try to explain it, they can't understand it. So it's very, this whole Captain America thing, this whole career, 23-year career thing is something very personal, because I had every opportunity and reason to fail, and I didn't. And I've seen it, I've done it, I've experienced it, and now I'm on the other side of it, and I'm able to reflect on it and smile about it. But going through it, life wasn't a crystal stair. It was, Juilliard was not a great time. Moving to New York at 17 with $400 in your pocket was not a great time. Even boarding school, North Carolina was not a great time. But I was able to take those and build on, because I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I was able to fight for it in the way that I fight.
I love that. So, you mentioned what you owe to that clown, and then we moved to Twisted Metal, and one of the most indelible images is of a clown who does not look happy, who looks like he occupies your nightmares, just like the one from the movie It does.
Right.
But looking at Twisted Metal and what you've done with it, what burned in you to want to tell that story? Because it does veer a little from the track that you were on, but you're executive producer, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that you're an input and you're still learning. Give me a sense as to what burned in you to do that, and what you're excited about to do it for a second season.
First of all, Twisted Metal is a great property. And whenever I read a script, I read it from the perspective of, is there something I can bring to it to make it better? If you look at my resume and you look at what I've done, I've always liked to play different characters, different types of characters. I don't care if I have one scene. I don't care if I'm the lead of the movie. If it's some shit I've never done before, I am in, right? So with John Doe, he's such a unique dude, and he's just a beautiful, untampered soul. Like he just sees the world for the beauty of the world, and but at the same time, he's quirky and he's weird, like he don't really fit in anywhere. His likes and wants are very different than other people's likes and wants. So I've never played that before. I've never had that opportunity. And Twisted Metal is such a unique property, because they don't give you go back and play the video game. John Doe was just a dude in a car who didn't know his name. That was all the story you got. So I was able to go in and build him from the ground up. I was able to go in and suit him to this world we were creating. So it was just different and exciting and unique in a way that there's nothing, I don't know if there's ever been anything like Twisted Metal on TV. It's just such a unique show and such a weird show that it's fun to do. It's fun to show up to set with Stephanie and just be ridiculous 12 hours a day and see if it works.
Well, now when people see you, do they probably call out something that you did, like "Where's Wallace?" That kind of thing. Do they remember you for Twisted Metal, or is it Captain America, or something else?
The biggest thing is I can narrow it down to 2 movies when I see the person. I can look at each person and say, you probably know me from this, but the biggest thing, which I'm most proud of, like I said, I've been in the game 23 years now and I have over 100 credits, but 8 Mile is like the one. Like everybody has such a passionate, infinite love for that movie. And ironically enough, I'm still good friends with all those dudes. Like I was hanging out yesterday with Eugene Bird. So, I talked to Mackie Pfeiffer a week ago, so it's just, we're all still really good friends because we were just kids. We didn't know what we were doing. And Curtis Hanson was such a great director that he gave us that opportunity to just have fun, and so most of the time I get Papa Doc. Papa Doc is the one of one. And then, I'm sure once Captain America comes out, that'll change. But if you're a dude, I don't care what your race is, if you're 30 to 55, it's Papa Doc.
Wow, that's something. Now, what was more intimidating to play, Tupac or MLK, and why?
MLK. MLK was a daunting experience and something I wanted to do personally. That was a very personal decision and personal role for me. And, Tupac, you have to be aware that Tupac, like Bob Marley, like Elvis, like Malcolm X, they live in 3 different realities. They live in the reality of the people that knew them. They live in the reality of what the press says about them. Then they live in the reality of what they said about themselves. So at best, you have a 33% chance of getting it right. And once you realize that, all bets are off. You're never going to please everybody because 99% of the people knew him in one way or another. No one knew him except his family in all 3 ways. And when his mom came to me and told me I did a great job and she was proud of me, nobody else mattered because they didn't know Tupac. They knew what they saw in the news. They knew what they heard in his music. They knew what they read in magazines, but they did not know him. His mother knew him. Even his sister, to this day, she was like, you did a great job as my brother. And his sister, ironically, lives in New Orleans now. So I see her all the time. So when the 2 of them gave me props, but MLK was, that's something you can't get wrong. You can get everybody else wrong. You can't get MLK wrong. You just can't.